Today we're actually going to be reviewing our trig unit, so I want you to take just a short amount of time right now and complete the paragraph as if you're telling another student how to identify each of the sides of a right triangle as either the side adjacent to theta, the side opposite of theta, or the hypotenuse. So try to use complete sentences, use complete grammar. Take a second, do this yourself, pause the video while you're doing it, and when you're ready, hit play. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at my paragraph that I wrote. I said when identifying the sides of a triangle, first mark the side opposite or across from the right angle as the hypotenuse. This is usually the easiest one for you to visualize. It's the easiest one for you to find. Secondly, what I want you to do is then to mark the side opposite your angle, furthest away from your angle, mark that the opposite. So the one opposite your angle is called opposite. Finally, mark the final side adjacent. It should be next to your angle but not the hypotenuse. So those are some good tips for you as you are going about and trying to identify your triangle. Probably one of the most important things when we deal with trig. So again, we have a right triangle. Again, I said to identify your hypotenuse first. This is your hypotenuse. The angle opposite or furthest away from your angle then would then be your opposite side. And the side that helps to make up your angle but is not your hypotenuse, this is called the adjacent side. The trig functions, remember that these are SOHCAHTOA, so we would say the sine of theta is always equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. That was the SO part of it. The cosine of theta, whatever your angle might be, is going to equal the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And finally, the tangent of theta is going to equal your opposite over your adjacent. And remember, the way to remember this is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Okay. It says find the sine of r, the cosine of r, and the tangent of r in each diagram. Round your answers to 4 decimal places if necessary. So really we're just focusing on r, so I'll go ahead and I'll identify those. So the side across from your right angle, again this is going to be your hypotenuse. The side opposite your angle is going to be the opposite. And the side next to you is going to be the adjacent side. So if I'm looking at the sine of r, the sine is going to be the opposite over hypotenuse, so that'll be 72 over 97. When I put 72 over 97 in my calculator, I should get 0.7423. The cosine of r is next. Cosine is always the adjacent over the hypotenuse, so that'd be 65 over 97. 65 over 97 in your calculator is 0.6701. Your tangent of r, the tangent of r is going to be 72. This is the opposite side over the adjacent side, which is going to be 65. 72 over 65 would be 1.1077 when you round correctly. We'll try this again for this second triangle over here. We'll just do this. We'll identify angle r. We'll identify each of the 3 sides. This would be the hypotenuse across from your 90-degree angle. The side opposite your r is going to be the opposite, and the side next to your r is going to be the adjacent. So the sine of r is going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse, so that'd be 56 over 106. Now both those numbers are divisible by 2, so we'll simplify this fraction down to 28 over 53. When we put 28 over 53 in our calculators, we get 0.5283. The cosine of r is going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse, so that would be 90 over 106. Both those numbers are divisible by 2 as well. So we'll change that and we'll simplify that fraction down to 45 over 53. When we put that into our calculators, we should get 0.8491. The tangent of r, the last one here, is going to be the opposite over the adjacent, so that'd be 56 over 90. Both those numbers are also divisible by 2, so we'll say that's 28 over 45. 28 over 45 in our calculator gives us 6.222. I'll leave the third one up for you to try. I hope you get it right. You can always check your answers with me in the morning in real life. The next thing says use the sine, cosine, and or the tangent to determine each variable. Round your answers to the nearest tenth, so it's just going to be to 1 decimal place. Show all your work and circle your final answers. When we have this 53 as our angle, This becomes our opposite side. This is our hypotenuse. So which trig function deals with opposite of hypotenuse? That's going to be the sine. So we'll say the sine of 53 degrees equals 22 over b. We'll multiply both sides by the denominator, which is b, and that would give us this. We'll divide both sides by the sine of 53, so we'd have 22 divided by the sine of 53 degrees. And b, when we round to the nearest tenth, should equal 27.5. I'll circle that answer so everyone knows that's my answer. And that's 27.5. I'll circle just a little bit better. There we go, that looks better. For the second one here, here's my 63 degrees. I'll identify my side. This is my adjacent side because it's the one next to my angle. This is the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. So they're always across from each other. Which trig function deals with adjacent and a hypotenuse? Well, that's the cosine. Of course it is, the cosine. So we'll say the cosine of 63 equals x over 73. In order to get rid of my fraction, I'll multiply both sides by the denominator, which in this case is 73. So I'll say 73 times the cosine of 63 equals x, and x will equal 33.1 if my calculations are correct. So last one over here, we have 39, so we'll again identify our sides. This would be the, well, I was going to write down that it was the opposite side, but really that's the adjacent side. This side over here is the opposite side. This side over here, the longest side, is going to be my hypotenuse. Which trig function deals with opposite and adjacent? Well, it's going to be the tangent. So the tangent of 39 degrees is going to equal my opposite, which is 52, over x. In order to solve for x, I'll multiply both sides by the denominator, which looks like this. To solve for x, then I have to divide both sides by the tangent of 39, which looks like this. You'll pop that in your calculator. Hopefully you get 64.2 when you round to the nearest tenth. So each one of these just has one variable. You're solving for just one variable, and all you do is you kind of ignore the extra pieces. So this one, you're not given really anything extra. Just identify your angle and the side lengths depending on the angle. In these three, what they do is they actually give you two pieces. So what I would do, maybe just do them alphabetically, cross out the K and don't worry about it. Just say, okay, J, from J, this is going to be the opposite, and this is going to be my hypotenuse. So you'd use the sine, and then cross out J and think about this. If I'm worried about K, this would now be my adjacent over my hypotenuse. This would be the cosine. So basically you're just doing the problem twice, and you're just identifying everything from the 42 degrees. I'll leave those for you to do. We have two story problems here. This first one deals with a drive-in movie. It says you are 50 feet from the screen, so this distance is 50 feet. Your eye is at a horizontal line with the bottom of the screen with an angle of elevation at the top of the screen of 58 degrees. That's amazing. I'm kind of shocked that you can figure out that that's 58 degrees, but you have no idea how tall the screen is. So that's kind of a little questionable on my part, but I'll go along with it. Since we're dealing with, we're trying to find this height here, we'll say it's x. This is the adjacent side, and this is my opposite side. I ask which trig function deals with opposite and adjacent. Well, that's going to be the tangent function. So I'd say the tangent of 58 degrees is going to equal the opposite over adjacent, or x over 50. I'll multiply both sides by 50, and what happens is I can put that in my calculator and find out to the nearest tenth of a foot, this movie theater screen is 80.0 feet tall. Pretty tall movie screen. I might park more than 50 feet away from it if I'm trying to view that and not trying to hurt my neck. It's a little tip for you at home. So last one's a little bit more difficult. It's kind of an interesting thing. I'm not sure this would be the most efficient way to find this problem out, but it is one way. Since you're in there's a skyscraper over here, and you somehow know the skyscraper is 780 feet tall. Maybe you were able to ask Siri that, and she was able to tell you. It says you are a block away from the skyscraper that is 780 feet tall. Your friend is between the skyscraper and yourself. Somehow the two of you are able to calculate your angle elevation. It says the angle elevation from your position to the top of the skyscraper is 42 degrees, angle of elevation from your friend's position to the top of the skyscraper is 71 degrees. That's kind of a tough thing to calculate, but I'll go along with it just for fun. Since to the nearest foot, how far are you from your friend? So this is going to be a several part problem. First, what we're going to do is we're going to find the distance from you to the skyscraper, and I'm going to call that distance u because it's you. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to find the distance from your friend to the skyscraper. I'm going to call that distance f because it's for your friend. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take u minus your friend's distance to figure out basically how far you guys are apart, and that's going to be my final answer. Okay, so I'm going to start over here because I'm going to need a little bit of room. I'm dealing with, I'm going to call this u, which is my adjacent side. This is my opposite side. So I'm dealing with opposite and adjacent. I have to work with tangent. So it's going to be the tangent of 42 degrees is going to equal 780 divided by u. I'll multiply both sides by u. So that's u times the tangent of 42 degrees equals 780. U will equal 780 divided by the tangent of 42 degrees. I throw that in the calculator. Luckily, I have a calculator. This is 866.2778 feet. That's how far you are from the skyscraper. You're actually further away from the skyscraper. Like if the skyscraper was to fall down on you, it would actually miss you by about 80 feet. So you could even fit a movie screen in between you and the skyscraper that just fell down. Secondly, we'll find the length between your friend and the skyscraper. So we'll use the tangent of 71 degrees this time to equal 780 over f. That's the distance from your friend to the skyscraper, this distance right here. Multiply both sides by f, so that's f times the tangent of 71 degrees equals 780. We'll divide both sides by the tangent, so we'll have 780 divided by the tangent of 71 degrees. And for us, your friend is actually 268.5755 feet from the skyscraper. So they're like 270, you're like 865 feet away from there. Again, here's my plan here. I'll take u minus, I probably don't have to use all these decimals, I'll say this, minus 268.5, I'll call that 8. This would give me a 0. If I borrow, this would give me a 7. That would make that a 5, so a 15. So that would be a 7. That would be a 15, so that's a 9. So 597.7 feet. It says, let's see, round to the nearest foot. Because that's a 7, I'd have to round up, so 598 feet is how far you guys are apart. So this distance, basically from you, that's you, and this is your friend, is about almost 600 feet. To be the nearest foot, you'd be 598 feet away from each other. This is your review for your test. Your test is coming up very soon. It's going to be our next class day. Do take some time, prepare. Hopefully these problems helped you. If you watch this again, you can always pause things, back things up. If you ever want to know the answers to some of these problems that we skipped, like these 3 or this one before, you can always come in and talk to me in person. Remember, a good thing to remember whenever we're dealing with trig is this SOHCAHTOA business. It's probably a good tip for you is just to write that on the top of your page as soon as you start the test. Make sure that you're able to do this. This stuff is really important. If you ever have any questions, please let me know.